This program is proudly brought to you by Telecom Limited, Daytech, and Fishing Industry Association PNG.
Good evening, viewers. I'm Malcolm Wyra, and welcome to another edition of Infocus. In this session, we are here to discuss the vote of no confidence. We look at its history and its practice in PNG and around the world, with the recent motion filed by the opposition. Joining us for discussion is Mr. Patrick Kaiku and Mr. Michael Kabuni, both of whom are lecturers and academics in political science at the School of Humanities and Social Science at the University of Papua New Guinea. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Michael, for our viewers who may not be familiar with the process of filing a motion for a vote of no confidence, can you briefly explain them?
First process is to identify a issue that is of national interest. So you have to point to an issue that is of national interest, and then you got technical requirements. So there are two. The first vote of no confidence, which is conducted before the 12 months leading up to the next election. If you're conducting a vote of no confidence, you name the alternate prime minister. So if from the opposition, for instance, who is the alternate prime minister, you have to name them. It has to be signed by 10% of the number of seats in parliament. So you have about 118 at the moment. So that's about 12 MPs. You get 12 MPs to support the motion. And then it's submitted to the Parliamentary Business Committee. Parliament Business Committee is chaired by the Speaker of Parliament. And they meet usually around Wednesday, because Parliament sittings are always on a Tuesday, not a Monday. So around Wednesday they meet and they go through the technical requirements. The role of the Parliamentary Business Committee is nothing more than ensuring that the technical requirements of a motion for a vote of no confidence is met. So is the alternate prime minister named in the motion, in the notice? Is it supported by 12, at least minimum 12 MPs? So that's all you need to, and is the opposition making reference to a national issue? Once that is met, once this criteria is met, there shouldn't be any delay. Beyond that, the speaker then presents to the parliament that there's a motion, it has met all the requirements, technical requirements, that is for a vote of no confidence. And then parliament, by practice, is adjourned for a week, and then you meet 1 week after that, and then the options are put forward to the members of parliament, and then they vote on who the next prime minister is.
Now, Michael, Section 145 of the Constitution provides for a vote of no confidence against the prime minister. Can you explain this particular provision?
Yeah, so you have to go all the way back to elections. The logic of election is that every Papua New Guinean has the right to make decisions for the country. But you cannot fit you cannot fit 11 million Papua New Guineans in the parliament. So you have an election, and you trim that number down by picking the best 118 to represent the country, represent the people on the floor of parliament. And then from the 118, the head of the executive government, the prime minister, then emerges from the 118. He is also accountable to the 118. Now, if the prime minister is not running the affairs of the country well, parliamentary system is a system where you cannot go back to the people in 5 years. You have to wait until the 5 years is over and you go for a fresh election. So you cannot wait for 5 years. So we built in the vote of no confidence process so that you replace the prime minister if it's not performing well before the next election, right? So vote of no confidence is an accountability mechanism between elections, right? The last election and the coming election, so that you don't have to wait for another 5 years. So the Prime Minister emerges from the legislative arm of the government, 118. It remains subject to the legislative arm of the government. And it's basically an accountability mechanism.
Thank you, gentlemen. We now go for a quick break. Join us on the other side for more discussions. Welcome back. You're watching In Focus. Now, Michael, there is a criticism that vote of no confidences are, by its nature, detrimental to political stability and subsequently economic stability. Do you feel this is a valid concern?
So there are two sides to it. You can look at vote of no confidence as having destabilizing effect. So, for instance, if you change the Prime Minister, the next Prime Minister that comes in has his own priorities, has his own preferences. He may not agree with the resource laws, for instance. So we've seen how the resource laws and policies have changed from Prime Minister Peter O'Neill to James Marape. And this affects investor confidence. So when investors are planning to invest in Papua New Guinea, they look at the current laws, right? They look at the current policies. They make their plans, they make their budget. Some borrow money from financiers to invest in the country. And they're making these judgments based on the laws that you have and the resource laws, labor laws. We're talking about minimum labor. How much do you pay? So all of these things are taken into account when they're making investment decisions. Now, if you change that with a new Prime Minister, it affects investors, right? So they didn't plan for, let's say, a minimum salary and wage that you just increased. They didn't plan for how much the state should, have as a share of state share in the investment. So this affects investor confidence. Also, so that's one. Even when you look at the performance of the bureaucracy. So we've had this practice where you have a new Prime Minister coming in. He replaces departmental heads. He replaces, in some instances, the police commissioner. We had, each Prime Minister coming in, having a different police commissioner. So it disrupts the flow, everything from service delivery to law enforcement. So that's why you need some form of consistency, and consistency comes with stability. Now that's that's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is that what happens if the Prime Minister is not managing the country well, and you cannot change the Prime Minister because you're concerned about stability? So that's the kind of dilemma you have to deal with. So vote of no confidence process is put in there precisely to protect the country. Now you can say it brings destabilizing effect, but on the other side, it provides a mechanism where you can stop country from further, deteriorating. So that's the other side of vote of no confidence.
Now, Patrick, in PNG's political history, how many motions of vote of no confidence have been successful?
It's interesting that the vote of no confidence has been given this very bad reputation as being a destabilizing kind of effect on the politics of the country. But when you look at the history of vote of no confidence in Papua New Guinea, the three most successful vote of no confidence have actually been in the 1980s. So in 1980, you had the first vote of no confidence, which was considered successful because the late Grand Chief Somare was replaced by Sir Julius Chen. That was in 1990. That was the first most successful. The second was in 1985 when Wingti again was replaced Somare as Prime Minister. This is how the vote of no confidence process went through the motions, and eventually Parliament had to replace one Prime Minister with another. We consider this as successful because the motion went through its completion, and it was entertained on the floor of Parliament, and Parliament voted out one Prime Minister and replaced him with another. And of course, the third one was like 36 years ago, in 1988, when Sarah Binamaliu was voted in as Prime Minister, replacing Pius Wingti. Most of what we know about vote of no confidence, the most important aspect of it was there's a trend in which you see the 1980s is being replete with vote of no confidence successfully being entertained on the floor. After the extension of the grace period in 1991, after the Constitutional Amendment 14 of 1991, the extension of the grace period to 18 months, allowing for government to settle in, the executive to settle in, you see less votes of no confidence being entertained, less successful votes of no confidence. The threat of no confidence votes are actually the ones that put us in a lot of anxieties about whether government will change or not. And you end up with the 1990s and 2000s prime ministers resigning to avoid a vote of no confidence because members of their government are defecting to the opposing side of the House to institute a vote of no confidence. So the recent vote of no confidence threat in 2019. So members of the PNC defecting to the Laguna group and then allowing for James Marape to be elected as Prime Minister after the vacancy, to fill up the vacancy that Peter O'Neill's resignation from the Prime Minister's post. So 1990s and 2000s, no successful votes of no confidence. 2016, Peter O'Neill was able to defeat a motion for vote of no confidence, 85 to 21. So overwhelming support, Parliament endorsing and giving him the mandate to continue after that unsuccessful vote of no confidence in 2016. So that is the historical rundown of how you can understand the chronology of votes of no confidence.
Mr. Patrick Kaiku, thank you for joining us in this session of Infocus.
Thank you for having us.
When we return, we are joined by Mr. Russel Yengin. Stay with us. Welcome back to Infocus. Joining us for this session, we have Mr. Russel Yengin from University of Papua New Guinea, who lectures in political science. Russel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Okay, firstly, Russel, there's a particular practice which is symptomatic of vote of no confidence periods throughout PNG political history, where members of parliament cross the floor irrespective of party affiliation. What does this reflect for the strength of political parties in parliament?
Let's start with the idea of political party and its party system in Papua New Guinea. We cannot assess the strength of party system. Our political party system is in development. And since 2000, we've introduced the organic law on parties or political party called the OLIPEC. Now, to answer the question, let's start by looking at the 2010 ruling on the OLIPEC. And the old ruling on the OLIPEC itself was positioned around the importance of Section 50, which is the rights of the members of parliament to move away. So the ruling itself strongly argues that the rights of the members of parliament or any individuals, our rights should not, or the political party should not supersede the right of the members of parliament. So based on that ruling, members have been granted this, you can say, freedom of movement. And it becomes more pronounced in the vote of no confidence. In terms of its strength, well, this hypothetically diminishes the strength of the political parties when you have members starting to cross the floor. But we are in this time in our democracy trying to find our way around this. But the importance of Section 50, the rights of the members of parliament, is something that political parties should. The way to address that is by providing incentives around this section here, okay, to protect Section 50, the individual rights of individual MPs, and also to promote the development of our party system.
Now, Michael, last year the Constitutional Law Reform Commission embarked on the review of the form and systems of government and the election of the Prime Minister, of which a key aspect of the review included the deciding on the tenure as well as the method and criteria for the nomination and election of the Prime Minister. Do you feel this is a timely question to be asking?
Yeah, it's the right time to ask questions regarding our system. The Constitutional Planning Committee didn't plan for the Constitution to be rigid. It made ways for us to measure the success of the country, make reforms where necessary. But the question should be more about, is the system not working because we adopted the wrong system? Or is it not working because we are not following the system as it's supposed to be? So I'll explain that in a minute. The practice now is our MPs have now become service deliverers. You give them constituency development funds in the form of District Services Improvement Program Fund, DSIP, and PSIP, which is the Provincial Services Improvement Program Fund. And now our MPs, apart from their role as lawmakers, they are now required to deliver services. This is important because what then happens is MPs become more focused on the service delivery function, and they're not paying attention to their role as lawmakers. And for any country or any democracy, for that matter, you need good laws. You need laws that are reflecting the aspiration of the country and of the people. You need laws that make things work. So right now, as the both of us sit and speak, there are about, I think, 50 plus laws that are outdated by more than a century. We haven't updated the laws because our MPs are interested in delivering services, paying less attention to perform their function as lawmakers. So my view is that the reason why the things are not working in this country has less to do with the systems we have, because you're asking the question whether it's the right time to have this discussion and to change the system. It's less to do with the systems that we have. It's got more to do with we not following what the system that we adopted, not following the precepts of the system, not following the requirements of the system. So if we really wanted to ask this question, we should have asked this question after we restricted the MPs to their lawmaking function. Take them away from service delivery. Let the bureaucracy perform the function of service delivery. Department of Works does the function of delivering services that's related to roads. Department of Education does the education service delivery. Department of Health does the service delivery in the health space. MPs should be confined to lawmaking. And if that doesn't work, all right, then we come back to asking the question, should we change the system? At the moment, we are not following parliamentary democracy as it's supposed to be practiced. We have our MPs as lawmakers as well as service deliverers. So you take MPs away from their service delivery role, restrict them to lawmaking. And if the bureaucracy doesn't provide, if the bureaucracy does not deliver the services that we want, then we can come back to having the discussion on whether we should change the voting system, whether we should extend the time frame as you pointed out. So that discussion should come after we have fully practiced the system that we have. If it doesn't work, then we can ask the question whether the system is working or not. Because at the moment, we haven't fully practiced the system as it's supposed to be practiced.
Now, hypothetically, if the people or the general population votes for the Prime Minister, what powers should the Parliament have? As you mentioned, legislation is its core mandate. But given the other powers that government and Parliament usually around the world have, what systems ideally will a Papua New Guinean Parliament should be having? Probably.
Yeah, I'll go back to what I just discussed, because we know from members of Parliament who accused the Prime Minister in previous years, accused the Prime Minister that Prime Minister withholds their constituency development funds. It's talked about earlier. And in a way, the legislative arm of the government becomes subservient to the executive arm of the government, because executive arm of the government controls the funding. And what it means is that, and you will see this, it's been consistent throughout the years, that whenever the executive arm of the government or the Prime Minister or the ministers put forth a proposal for Parliament to vote, there is overwhelming support for the proposal. That reflects a very weak legislative arm of the government or the opposition. You need a strong opposition, and the legislative arm of the government, you need that arm of the government to be strong to hold the government accountable, the executive arm. But we know from some MPs who've been accusing the prime ministers for withholding their share of the DSIP and PSIP funds. So for you to get your funding, you will have to support the government of the day, regardless of whether that decision is wise or not. So then that then affects the entire quality of the parliament. It affects the quality of the democracy we have, because the government, using this resource, can regulate the behavior of the MPs to stay in power for a very long time. We know this from, for instance, amending of the Constitution. The grace period now, it's now back to 18. The grace period was extended to 30. It received overwhelming support from the parliament. You didn't have much debate because there is no one to actually challenge that. You didn't have people voting against it because everyone was supporting the government. So the question is this: whether the new system you adopt will fix this problem. My feeling is that it won't, because the problem isn't that the system isn't working. The problem we have is because the executive arm of the government controls the resources, and now they can regulate the behavior of the entire parliament. So if you want to have a new system, the discussion would be that, what should be important in the new system is that, does that new system take away the power of the executive arm of the government? Does that system make the opposition or legislative arm of the government more independent? You have to answer that question, because that is vital for democracy. That is vital for service delivery. That is vital for almost everything that we have in this country. So the important question shouldn't be presidential system or bicameral system. The most important question should be, if we adopt a new system, will that system make the opposition more independent? Will that system make the executive arm of the government more accountable? That's the question you have to answer. And my view is that with the system we have now, the parliamentary system, unicameral parliamentary system that we have now, it's sufficient. You just have to take away the control of the executive over the resources. And one of the ways you can do this is that abolish the constituency development funds that we have, DSIP and PSIP funds. All right? Let the bureaucracy deliver services. Let the MPs, members of parliament, make laws, debate laws, talk about national issues. Now, if you cannot abolish constituency development funds in its entirety, then maybe pass a law, a Constituency Development Act, for instance, and that act should say something like this. Every MP gets his share of the Constituency Development Fund. Each quota you allocate a percentage, and you also state when they get it. Now, this act would then take away the control of the executive from these funds, so that every MP knows that first quota they are getting a certain percentage, and they are not relying on the mercy of the executive arm of the government to give them that funding. If you do that, now the legislative arm of the government or the opposition now becomes vibrant, because they know they can criticize the government and still get their share of the funding by law. Right now, you don't have a law. The best you have is something called Administrative Guidelines 2013. It does not tell you how much a MP should get, and it does not tell you when the MP should get the funding. So you got two options: abolish constituency development funds, make the legislative arm of the government more accountable, so that they could, more independent, so they could hold the executive arm of the government accountable, or put a law in place so that this law protects the funding of the MPs, so that they are not subservient to the executive arm of the government. So in summary, what I'm saying is, you really don't need a new system. You have to fix the system that you already have. It's better to fix the system that you already have because you know how it works, you are just improving on it, than adopting a completely new system. And Russel might talk about this more. In this country, whenever you bring in a new system, it never works. We tried this with first past the post voting system, right? This system was supposed to lead to two dominant political parties. It happened in the United States, it happened in Australia, it happened in New Zealand, it happened in the United Kingdom. But when you established first past the post, when you adopted first past the post in Papua New Guinea, how many political parties did you have? It exceeded well beyond 30. Right now we have 56. That's what I hear. So whenever you adopt a new system in Papua New Guinea, it usually doesn't work. So you shouldn't be too, you shouldn't be trying to introduce new system, right? Work with what you have. And we can actually make the system that we have work, if our leaders are serious.
Michael Kabuni and Russel Yengin, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, viewers, that's all the time we have for this edition of Infocus. Do join us again next week, Monday, on our regular time slot of 7 p.m. for another edition of Infocus. Till then, good night.
This program was proudly brought to you by Telecom Limited, Daytech, and Fishing Industry Association PNG.